Whoa, what just happened? Okay, that was crazy. Hi, Internet. Welcome to episode number 252 of the Comic Watchers Show. I'm Matt. He's Chad. We watch comics, and this is our show. With us this episode, I can't even say this week because this is somehow our second episode this week because we rock just that much for you. But we are here with artist Jamal Igle. We're here to talk about The Wrong Earth, Dead Ringers, and Dudley Datson from Ahoy, I should say, and then yes. Dudley Datson and the Forever Machine from Dark Horse, among many other things in his story.
Yes.
So, Jamal, how the heck are you, man? This is, I believe, your second time on the show joining us, and we are just happy to have you.
Well, thanks for having me back, guys. I really appreciate it. How have I been? I've been good. I've been very busy. It's, between like the comic stuff, and then I teach part-time, and house full of people.
Right.
So it's a very busy week.
You got to stay busy because if you're not, you're probably itching for things to do, and that sort of idle time, devil's playground, et cetera, metaphor starts to manifest.
And I can't go back to prison at this point. So.
I understand. You're too delectable for that.
Exactly. I'm too pretty. Too pretty for prison.
What are you gonna do? You can't go back.
This is true.
So
listen, I've seen Jamal in the slanket before, so.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, let's get this party started. Jamal, how was this your, I believe, fourth entry into the world of The Wrong Earth, Dead Ringers?
Oh my! Well, technically, I would say so because, well, yes and no, because on top of doing like the three main series, I've also drawn the covers for almost every Wrong Earth project that's come out from Ahoy over the last 7 years. So I've always had a hand in things since the very beginning. So, but as far as like the main storyline, this is the third full series. Well, yes and no, because the Dead Ringers trade paperback also includes the 2-issue special that we did. We can be heroes.
That's right.
So you're getting 7 issues worth of content with that. So the fourth entry. Yeah, weird. It's weird to think of it that way. It really is.
Well, you've been doing this since the beginning, and we've talked to Tom Pyre about it as well. But for those who maybe aren't familiar with The Wrong Earth, can you give us a quick synopsis for it?
Sure. Imagine a dark vigilante in a far-off city of crime and filth and destruction, and he discovers that he's not alone in the universe, and that he is now forced to team up with his brighter, sunnier version from a Silver Age pastiche universe where up is down and black is white, black and white, and dogs and cats live together in harmony. And they hate each other.
So basically, in a nutshell, it's The Dark Knight Returns teaming up with Batman 66.
Pretty much. If you want to put it that way. I was trying to use like the non get me in trouble with DC Comics version.
Understand. Listen, let me draw DC's ire for you.
Okay, good. You can do that.
Yeah, it's all good. I'm nobody. I'm not trying to make my way in the industry. So you've been doing the Wrong Earth for 7 years now, which is impossible to think about. I didn't even realize until you said that Ahoy has been around that long, but I guess they have.
Yeah.
Because they started in 2018, which, my goodness, that was 7 years ago. Yeah. How do you feel like you've grown as an artist, like in this world and of this world?
During that time? Well, I mean, I mean, other than like the evolution of the characters themselves, like the way that I draw Dragonfly Man and Dragonfly and Stinger and everybody else now is, very different than my approach with the first miniseries. I think my approach with the first miniseries, especially where Dragonfly was concerned, for the folks. So just to help you folks out, Dragonfly, Ben Affleck, Dragonfly Man, Adam West. So Dragonfly Man is our, Adam West-ish, but my approach has always been more based in the comics. So, if you're a fan of Marshall Rogers Batman or Jim Aparo, or Don Newton, or even Carmine Infantino. That's always been sort of my approach to that character, and even that has evolved. And I think having the opportunity, having been on a project for so long, having an opportunity to sort of flesh things out for everything, like Fortune City, both versions of Fortune City are so clearly defined in my mind, and how to approach all of the characters, like the approach for all the characters are so much more clearly delineated for me now that it's very easy for me to slip back into those worlds and to just expand on it as well. And when you're on a project, I've drawn 19 issues, like 30 covers of The Wrong Earth. Like when you're on a project for that long and have that much time to just sort of like, really give everything a real close examination, I think it only improves the overall tenor of the work in general.
Right.
So,
and it probably, if I had to guess, it probably doesn't hurt that you have developed a good shorthand with Tom by this point too.
well, I mean, that's always been sort of the easy part, because Tom and I have very similar sensibilities when it comes to comics and very similar senses of humor. So, it's very easy for me to talk to Tom and he'll come up with an idea for something and like, all right, let's do it. Let's go. Like we've got something coming up. And he told me the idea. It was just sort of like, saying, I'm in, let's do this. So
what was it about The Wrong Earth that first appealed to you and made you want to, be a part of the project?
it's one of those concepts where you kind of get hit over the head with the idea that nobody's ever really done this in that way before. Like we've seen multiverse stories for the past like almost 50 years at this point, but I don't think anybody's ever really approached, the story in this way. And, with Dead Ringers, we really kind of go into the meta narrative of multiverse stories. And, what is the mindset of someone when they realize that they're not, wholly unique. And, you get to see either the parts of yourself that you like, but probably mostly the parts of yourself that you hate being reflected back at you in a very, judgmental kind of way. At least, with Dragonfly Man and Dragonfly. So it was just, honestly, like as a project, it was just, when it was pitched to me, it was just like, damn it, why didn't I think of that? I'm in.
So your other major project in the last year or so has been from Dark Horse.
Right.
Datson and the Forever Machine with some guy named Scott Snyder. So
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. I figured I'd give him a chance. These newbie writers who've never really done anything.
Yeah.
Well, he was certainly riding your coattails at the comicsology thing at New York Comic Con this past year.
No, that was a bucket list item for me. Like Scott and I have known each other for so long, and we had wanted to work together a couple of different times, and nothing could ever like forces seemed to conspire against us, particularly when we were at DC around the same time. But when he approached me about doing a project with him, and he actually pitched 2 projects, but I felt like Dudley was definitely the thing that fit my natural sensibilities. So and it was a great experience, like just overall, like a lot of work, but a great experience.
So what can you tell us about Dudley Datson? Excuse me.
Sure. Dudley Datson and the Forever Machine is the story of a 15-year-old genius who goes to a high school for gifted students, and he invents, but his inventions don't always work out the way that he wants to. He's got a father who's not feeling well, and he's trying to find a way to capitalize on, his genius to, make life better for him and his father. And then aliens show up.
As they do.
As they do. And Dudley inherits a watch that does something very, very special, and he becomes the guardian of a talking corgi named Daedalus.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like how you guys kind of mixed mythology with I'm going to say Doctor Who because
Oh yeah, no,
that's
it's
the vibe I got.
Oh yeah, no, it's very much. It's for me. It's there's the mythology angle, the history angle, but there's also Doctor Who, Tom Swift, also like Dudley's very much in that model of like a kind of Tom Swift kind of character. Because Dudley is a genius, and he like in the story he invents something, that could in real life would absolutely revolutionize the world, but he becomes part of a bigger narrative when he gets the watch. So yeah, so it's very much in that Doctor Who kind of vein.
I thought that was a cool couple of sequences where we'll just say it because it's been out a year, hasn't it? But he's able to, has the clothes that able to adapt to, whatever he wants to do, and then when he goes to show it off, he ends up, naked.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's how the book opens. I mean, everybody. I think if you've seen the previews, you've seen how that worked out. But yeah, no, it's it was Scott and I wanting to do a YA adventure story. Our kids are about the same age. They're a little bit older now than they were when we started putting the project together. But just wanting to do something fun and wanting to do something original. And Dudley was the first like pure sci-fi project that I've done in a while. And it was not the first YA project that I've done, but it was definitely more. I wanted to kind of break away because I felt like, I've been doing superheroes for, 30 plus years at this point. Every so often, you want to like prove that you can do other things. You don't want to.
You don't want to pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like a director always direct. I don't want to Martin Scorsese myself. It's.
Am I correct that you got your start on Firestorm? Was that your first?
No, actually. Well, so my first monthly gig was New Warriors for Marvel back in 1999. And then
Very cool.
yeah, but that was my first monthly gig. But I got my start was actually Green Lantern back in 1994. So
Okay.
I had a long career. Like the first, I would say, 6 years of my career was me mostly doing like fill-ins and the last issue or something, or a lot of like I was doing a lot of independent projects, but nothing like things with really really small print runs, but
I can see the benefit to that though,
yeah,
because I mean, it gives you the opportunity to cut your teeth all over the place
oh yeah,
and build a portfolio.
yeah, and at the time, like I was still splitting my time between marketing and advertising, and I kind of dipped in and out of like corporate America a few times. I worked at an ad agency. I was doing book publishing marketing for about a year or so. I went and worked at Sony Animation and doing storyboards. I was just kind of jumping around all over the place until like New Warriors, and that's kind of the point where I was just like, okay, if I'm gonna take a stab at doing comics full time, this has got to be the time. This is what I'm gonna do.
Well, and if you're going to jump in somewhere, I mean, New Warriors is just a fun run to jump in on.
Oh yeah, it was weird because when I was tapped to do it, nobody told me the book had already been canceled. So I came in. I came in with issue 6 of the Jay Ferber run of New Warriors, and like even just as I was getting started, Marvel decided they were going to cancel the book, but they gave it 10 issues. So I did the last 4 issues. I did 6 through 10 of New Warriors, and then I did Iron Fist Wolverine miniseries right after that from Marvel. And then and I went to I was doing that. I was working at Sony Animation at the same time. So it was I was kind of burning the candle at both ends, and then decided to move back to New York from Los Angeles, and then I started doing just everything. I did venture with Jay over at Image. Launched the same time as Invincible. Invincible lasted like 1,000 years, and we lasted 4 issues.
So that's kind of your,
yes.
so, getting that your origin as a creator. What's your, origin as a reader? What, made you fall in love with the media and want to, be a part of it?
Well, to be honest, I just sort of it just always seemed like comic book stuff, like comic book related everything was around me, like since I was a kid. Like my dad was into comics. I had an uncle who was into comics. I used to read I'm a '70s kid, so that's when they had the Spider-Man TV show, $6 Million Man, and Batman was in reruns, and they show reruns of the Adventures of Superman, during the day. So it just sort of seemed like that stuff was always around. And then my grandfather took me to see the first Chris Reeve Superman movie, and that just sort of cemented everything. That like everything else just sort of came together. So I became obsessed with superheroes, with Superman in particular, with anything comics, the Spider-Man newspaper strip, like whatever, like Filmation, TV, whatever, Shazam and ISIS, just everything. Tarzan and the Super 7. It was all the same to me. So I think I probably started buying comics on my own when I was probably around, I want to say like 7 or 8. So like I'd go to the newsstand and I would buy like didn't really know a lot, but would just pick up stuff every once in a while. But I think the first comic that I bought and really decided, okay, I'm gonna read this series was Alpha Flight. So yeah, so Alpha Flight number 12 was the first, like, paid for with my own money, made me decide I'm gonna read this series. I'm gonna stick with this series. So that was the first thing, and then Firestorm and everything else. But again, it was like whatever I could find on the newsstands at the time, like up until I want to say junior high school, and then like I started curating.
And so, when did you first? I mean, when did you start drawing? And you know,
Well, I always drew.
picking-
Like, I always drew, like from as far back as I can remember, and before I drew, like there's family stories of me like taking like pipe cleaner and aluminum foil and trying to make the Starfighter from Buck Rogers while I was watching the show, sitting in my aunt's living room, like trying to origami full like aluminum foil into this spaceship. So yeah, I don't think there was ever really a time when I didn't do something creative. I was always drawing, and always like really just kind of always knew that I wanted to do something in comics, you know. And then I would say it was pretty early because like I was that kid. Like I'd be drawing in class, and then I'd like go underneath my desk because it was too distracting, which became a distraction for everybody else because everybody else would come to see what Jamal was doing under the desk. And like me and like when I was in like the 4th grade, me and my buddies would like make little mini superhero comics. Like I was drawing, but like my friend Clifford, who's now a cinematographer, uh, he would like take like copies of like Superboy and Legion of Superheroes and use like mimeograph paper to like trace the figures and like make up his own stories from that. Like we draw them as our own characters. So yeah, it was just always something that I always did. Like it was just it just seemed like the most natural thing to me in the world was this comic book stuff.
I feel like those are always the purest creator stories. It was just always there. It was
Yeah.
part of who I was growing up. It just felt natural, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that energy is still with you as a creator today?
Yeah. I can't help myself. I think I absolutely like. I'm not obsessive about it the way that I was when I was younger, because it's been my career for so long. So I'm not drawing every single hour of the day. If I'm not working, like if I'm working, I'm drawing. Like that's it. I'm concentrating on. But because I still work in comics full time, and I teach comic art at the School of Visual Arts once a week. So I've had to learn how to break down my own process and my own techniques and try to explain them to other people on a weekly basis. So I'm constantly thinking and constantly examining my own work and other people's work at this point.
So who do you feel are your influences or in the art world or in the comic art world?
Oh, that's a lot. I mean, in like the art world, I mean, I grew up on Rockwell and John Singer Sargent, Peter Paul Rubens. Like, you know, one of my one of my teachers in high school, a guy named Richard Pachter, um, who was teaching figure drawing. Like, he had a sidekick doing reproductions of old masters paintings for very rich people. So, like, he would like walk in with these like custom made suits and a Rolex, like into a high school. But this is what but he was passing down like these old masters techniques. So he was the one who exposed us to a lot of the old masters. And then, like, as far as like comic stuff, like the list is so long. Like, but I mean, if you twist my arm, it always comes back to people like Dave Stevens or Brian Bolland or Alan Davis or Jose Luis Garcia Lopez or Jerry Ordway, Killian Plunkett, Al Williamson, like anybody who has like a naturalistic bent to their work. I've always been, I think, more drawn to as a comic book fan. And then, like, there's so many guys working now who are so good. They're so good. Like, I love Bruno Redondo. I love Bill Quizzelli. I love Amanda Conner. I love, Dan Mora. I love Olivia Claypell. I love Pepe Larraz. Like, there's just so many really talented people working in the business.
Matt's
It really
muted right
feels
now.
like I have. Yeah. It really feels like in the last 5 or 6 years or so, there's just been this surge in talent in the industry. Like,
I would
not
disagree. I feel like there's been, I would say, for at least like the last 20 20 plus years, we've just it's been sort of like an embarrassment of riches. Because you can talk about the new guys that are coming up that are doing really well, but then you're putting them alongside Chad Harden, for example, or just off the top of my head, like Paris Aline, or or Freddie. I didn't think of a Freddie. It, my brain is messing with me right now. I just or if you think of like somebody like Victor Ibanez, Roger Ibanez, Majo Gordito, Pete Woods, like there's too many good artists to like
very true.
even really discount like the guys who've been doing it longer as opposed to the guys who seem to have kind of burst on the scene, but you kind of know they've been around for like 15 years. So they were just doing other stuff. It's just I think a lot of people's awareness is usually, at least in this business, begins and ends when somebody starts working for Marvel or DC.
right.
So, like, a lot of people know me from my DC work, but don't know that I've been working for almost a decade, like even before they, took notice of what I was doing.
So, kind of bringing it back to the Dudley Datson. What was the um, how did you guys get involved with Comixology, with that format and all that, and why did you guys feel that was a good fit for the book?
Well, that was a Scott thing. Like Scott and Comixology, like they put that deal together. So Scott had these 8 titles that he was taking a break from Batman. He had all of these creator-owned projects that he wanted to do, and he wanted to do with his friends, basically. So he did We Have Demons with Greg Capullo. He did Duck and Cover with Raphael Albuquerque. He did Dudley with me. You know, he did Barnstormers with Tula Lotay. You know, Ariel Christianis. Like he just had like a bunch of different ideas that he wanted to do, and they gave him the runway and the financing to do it through his Best Jacket Press. So.
So to a degree, it is still dogs over here being nasty right as I unmute. Sorry about that.
No problem.
It kind of is who you know in certain instances.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've been very fortunate that you know good quality friends.
I will be the first to admit that I have been very, very blessed to have had the opportunity to work with some of the biggest names in this industry over the course of my career. And yet still there are still a couple of people that I want to work with that I haven't worked with yet, that God willing, I will one day have the opportunity to cross swords with. So.
And okay, you gotta give us a little bit. Who's
Okay.
Names?
Okay. So on the bucket list so far are Tom Taylor, who makes me cry every single time.
Right.
in good ways. Gail Simone, also Tom King. I haven't had the chance to work with either of the Toms yet. And those are like the top of the list right now. Like as far as like writers, those are the people that I would love to like. And with Gail, we came close, but circumstances prevented us from working together. The others is just the timing ultimately.
Sure. There's only so much time you have, and everybody's schedule has to overlap, and
Absolutely.
yeah, kind of is what it is sometimes.
This is true.
And I know you've dipped your toe into writing and doing your own books
Yeah.
to limit varying results, we'll say. But any desire to try that again?
Yes, but again, it's circumstances have to present themselves in a way that would make it feasible. Yeah.
Sure.
Unfortunately, the things are not the way that they used to be. As far as like getting things funded and everything. So, I'm sure at some point, I will be able to. I'll jump back in on the writing, and it's not that I don't have ideas. I do, and usually with whatever project I am working on, there's a lot of collaboration involved on the writing end as well. So.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask about, working with Scott, and being, a co-creator of the book. How did that, relationship and process work between the two of you?
It was actually very smooth, and Dudley, I think in general for me, because I think this has been true for a lot of projects that I've been involved with, building from the ground up. I have a tendency to kind of have my hand in all aspects. So it's not just with the comic and like designing characters, but like for the Raw Earth and Dudley Datson, for example, I designed the logos for each of the book. I designed like the overall look. I provide color guides occasionally. I work very closely with the creators involved to kind of get the look and feel that I want. And I'm not afraid of, if I feel like I can contribute to something story wise, or if a writer says to me, do you have some ideas for this? Do you have any ideas? And I'm usually very, very quick to contribute. It's a good thing. I mean, with Scott and with Tom, respectfully, I tend to prefer to work from full scripts, and it's easier for me to kind of like pitch ideas, but sit back and see what comes from those ideas. And then in other projects, they'll occasionally just say, okay, you got 6 pages, get me from point A to point Z for these 6 pages, and then I'll just do the dialogue later.
So who worked with you and Scott on who were the rest of the creative team that you guys worked with on the book?
So our editor Will Dennis, who used to be at the Chris Sotomayor was the colorist on Dudley Datson and did a fantastic job of that. Tom Napolitano did the lettering for Dudley Datson. This is actually the first time that Tom and I ever worked together, but I was really, really happy with the result. So that's like the core Dudley Datson team right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then with the Raw on Earth, I forgot Juan Castro, who was the inker, who up until recently was like my inker on everything for like the past like decade plus. So including the Raw on Earth.
And did you, working on Dudley, did you have a chance to help fill out that team?
Well, yeah, I brought in Chris and Juan. Like, I like I like having people around me working on my projects that I know and that I trust. Chris is like everything that I know about coloring comics, I learned from Chris. So Chris, whenever I can get Chris on something, I want Chris coloring over me. Chris colored me on Firestorm, and colored me on some stuff that I did for Milestone. So he's like one of my go-to colorists in general. And then, like I said, Juan started working with me on Molly Danger, way back, 2011, 2012, and up until Dead Ringers was like my inker. If I wasn't inking myself, then Juan would be inking.
Do you have occasionally the type of projects where you do prefer to ink your own work?
Usually with covers, up until recently, usually with covers, I would do everything. I would do the inking, the coloring, and the production myself. Recently, I started doing my interiors digitally, so I'm inking myself as well.
Okay, I was just going to ask you about your process and what if you work strictly digital or kind of a hybrid or.
It was an evolution. I started out on paper, then like the last, I would say, probably the last like 5 or 6 years, it's been sort of a hybrid of digital and traditional, moving more towards digital now. Now with the projects I'm working on right now, it's 100% digital, except for the covers.
What are some advantages or disadvantages of going digital?
Well, the disadvantage of going digital is you don't have like the same, or I can't reach into a drawer and pull out a page. You can't really see it because it's all fuzzy. There we go. Yeah, you can't. You don't have stuff to just pull from. What?
Right.
Oh God, it's so hard to see. There you go. But so that's the disadvantage of digital. The advantage of digital is I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm running out of space. So
Gotcha.
and then yes, exactly. And there's a practicality to it. It's also it increases my personal output, like the time it takes me to do things. Because if I were to pencil traditionally, it would take 2 days, maybe 3 days for me to finish a page. Where if I'm inking digitally, like I can pencil 3 to 4 pages digitally, as opposed to the way I was penciling them traditionally. And then, I'm kind of inking a page a day, maybe a little bit more than that, depending on the requirements of the page. So, it's a faster process, and there are a lot of advantages in terms of like different types of effects. If I'm going to be coloring something myself, then the pipeline is actually much more streamlined, because instead of having to scan everything, then I'm just sending it from Clip Studio Paint into Photoshop.
So you've mentioned you've mentioned that you've also been doing some teaching. Can you kind of give us some backstory and origin on how you fell into that?
Well, sure. And this story actually goes back a little bit further. So about 17 years ago, I started. There's a school here in New York City called the Art Students League of New York. It's a very old enclave for artists, over 112 years old. And I started 17 years ago. I started their comics program, which is still going to this day, actually. Two friends of mine, Steve Walker, who was my former assistant, and started doing graphic novels for like Random House, Scholastic, and stuff. And he runs the program now. And then Andrew Drillin, who's been doing a lot of work at DC recently, is also employee at the league, so they manage the program. So I did that for a couple of years, and when my kid was born, I took a step back because my wife was just like, you can't spend 8 hours on a Sunday every Sunday. We've got an infant, so. So that's the backstory. So I'm on my 3rd year, so about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, I was approached by Jason Little at the School of Visual Arts about the possibility of becoming a professor. They were looking for professionals. There was a number of like long-standing comics professionals who work at SVA, but they were also looking for teachers who were also former SVA alumni, which I am as well. So so that's because I hadn't done any teaching, or at least formal teaching, in so long. I wasn't sure if it was something that I really wanted to do, but I ended up really getting into it. So I teach a class called Principles of Comics. It's we have our own. It's a mandatory 2nd year class. for a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Comics. So I run my students through the ringer.
Very cool. What sort of curricula do you have?
Well, basically, my curriculum is that I teach completely traditional techniques. Everything is done on paper with pen and ink. There's very little, with the exception of this semester, I'm allowing them to do their thumbnails and their layouts digitally, that everything else has to be done on paper. So they learn to pencil, they learn to ink, they learn to letter, all traditional techniques using traditional tools. So, because a lot of these kids come in already knowing how to use, Photoshop or CSP or Procreate, but we want to make sure that they know and understand the traditional tools.
Yeah, the fundamentals.
The fundamentals, and I also the first semester, the way that I break up the semesters is the first semester is sort of an overview of everything, but we also talk about like the history of the industry, why certain things are done certain ways. We discuss, dialogue. We discuss, plotting. We discuss coloring. We discuss the uses of spot black in artwork. I go have an entire lecture just talking about people who work primarily using extreme black. I call it what we do with the shadows.
Very cool.
So, we talk about, how the business got started, where the business got started, we talk about the early days of, national periodicals and, Major Nicholson and, the whole thing, Stan Lee, the formation of Image Comics, how did all that came about, broad strokes stuff. They also have history. They have a history of comics course at the school. They have a storytelling class. They have pictorial. They have professional practices. But we've got people at SBA like Nelson DeCastro and Carl Potts and Joey Cavalieri and Joan Hilty. Torin Clark teaches a class on doing covers.
Oh, really?
Sal Cipriani has a lettering course. Like, Miss Lasco teaches, the same class that I do, Principles of Comics. It's, I'm, a lot of the other professors, who are around my age or more indie comics, YA comics. I'm the token superhero guy. So, and with the exception of Torin, I'm the token superhero guy.
So it's my it's kind of a two-part question. First question is, what's the best piece of advice somebody ever gave you about your comics career? And part two is, what do you know now that you would tell your younger self, if you had the chance, about what you've learned?
Okay, the best piece of advice that anybody ever told me about my comics career was never volunteer.
Really?
Keith Giffen told me that.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. And funny thing about that is Keith and I worked together on Countdown to Final Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And after I got the job, the first phone call I got was from Keith going, "What did I tell you? Never volunteer." But the best piece of advice I probably have ever gotten, and I try to pass this on to my students, is to remember that this business, what we do, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You have to learn to be patient with yourself. You have to learn to accept what you can do and be comfortable with the things that you can't do yet. Because we're constantly learning, we're constantly growing, constantly evolving. If you are creative in any way, shape, or form, you are always, always striving to improve your skill set. You know, you're always striving to learn new things, to do different things, and to, you know, to become more than one thing. When I started out in this business, I was just a penciler. I had no real aspirations of doing anything else except maybe penciling covers. And now, you know, I've had so many different opportunities over the years doing so many things, both in comics and outside of comics. And all of that came about because I learned to be patient with myself. And if there was something that I didn't already know, you know, I took the time to learn.
Okay. Words of wisdom. So, looking ahead, what do you have for your lined up for your next projects?
Oh, nothing that I can announce yet.
Okay, I see.
I'm working on like two things right now. That'll be at both, which should be one at least, which should be announced fairly soon, and then I'm back to Ahoy for a couple of things, Raw Earth related, but can't really talk about exactly what those are just yet. So, but there will
we be seeing any further adventures of Dudley?
Oof, I would like to. You know, Dark Horse is in a weird place right now, like in terms of, you know, projects, like new projects. I don't know. And then, you know, unfortunately, like, I'm busy. Scott's busy.
He's not busy.
Those overlapping schedules.
You know, so I would love to do more Dudley, and I think we left Dudley in a really good. We left Dudley in a really good place in the series.
Well,
We'll see.
if and when we get Scott back on the show sometime soon, fingers crossed, we will be sure to relay a message to him.
Yeah, pester him a little bit.
Yeah, pester him just a little bit. So, man, Jamal wants more Dudley. Look him up. So we got your back, man. No worries.
All right, I appreciate that.
Of course. Of course.
And what do you like to do? You know, when you step away from the art table, what do you do to kind of clear your mind and revitalize yourself? And
Oh, there's a few things. Like, I like to cook. You know, I usually like the thing that I do, like, to kind of like clear my head for the day is like I'll take my dog for like a 5-mile walk. Just
not this past week, right?
Not this past week. This past week has been much shorter walks. It's been like, you know, a mile. You know, it's like it's too freaking cold. It's too freaking cold. But yeah, no. But usually, like, that's like my head clearing space. I just, you know, pop the headphones in and we just start walking. And you know, hour and a half later, I'm like, you know, they're ready to tackle the rest of the day. But you know, like, and you know, I watch dumb stuff. You know, I've been watching, you know, old episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, like this past week. Just, you know, just to clear the cobwebs. It's you know, but you know, and then like catching up on TV shows. Like I just started watching a new season of Reacher. I just finished Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which was really good. The first episode of Reacher, it's Reacher. Like it's, you know, it's good. You know, it's, you know, got to get back into it. But we've been catching up on the third season of Resident Evil. Not Resident Evil, Resident Alien. Yeah, and then I've been watching a lot more anime recently, like, or at least trying to. Like I've been watching Sakamoto Days, which I like a lot, and then I'm watching Seven Deadly Sins for Four Nights of the Apocalypse. They're both on Netflix. And then I started watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Right.
I don't know if I can hang it. I don't know if I can hang in with that one. I just, it's like stuff that has like a long tail. Like I tried watching One Piece. There's just too much to One Piece. There's just too many episodes of One Piece to stick to. Like I don't have the patience.
Right?
Yeah. I just, I don't have that when I was younger, I had the patience to like watch all of Dragon Ball Z. Like I don't have that kind of patience anymore.
No. We got work to do now and sleep to
get. Exactly.
Right.
Give me a 2-season anime. Like I'm good with that. Like 2 seasons, I'm good. Like you told your story. I don't need.
Well, it took Dragon Ball Z like a whole week to go like 10 minutes, and the time.
It's episode 319. Goku's charging up the fire Kamehameha. Episode 350. Goku just fired the Kamehameha away, but it had to hit its target.
Sort of it. I know I had a hard time getting into Dragon Ball Z, even back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Like, just do your thing, please.
But it's one of those things where everybody would just talk about how great. Like it's a good show. You could chop like 5 years out of it. It would be awesome.
Yes. Absolutely. So
are you, reading anything that you would recommend?
Oh, boy. Yes. Okay. So one thing that I read recently that I really, really dug. I'm a big like Ed Brubaker mark. So anything Ed does, like I pick up. And Friday with him and Marcos Martin is actually that's like the most recent thing that I've read. Like that like I was just like, wow, this is freaking fantastic. Like this is absolutely fantastic. Like just prime stuff. Chris Somney pisses me off in the best possible way.
he makes it look easy, huh?
He makes it look way too easy. Just way too easy. So yeah, him and Mark Waid on Batman and Robin. Yeah. What else am I reading? I started reading Spider-Boy recently. Like it's funny. Like I wasn't sure if I could get into it. It's
It took me a minute to figure out what Dan Slott was going for with that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So different from his other oeuvre.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
But, yeah, absolutely. It's totally YA.
Oh yeah,
but very smartly so.
Yeah, but totally enjoying it. And then, yeah, I think that's like the broad strokes stuff, like the stuff that I would definitely recommend right now off the top of my head.
Okay, I got you. Well, since you can't talk about any of your upcoming books, we're just going to have to leave with a plug on your most recent stuff, which is Dudley Datson, Forever Machine from Dark Horse.
People can find you.
Well, you can find me.
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you, Chad.
Yes. So, yes, you can find me at my website, which is jamaligle.com, or you can find me on Blue Sky and Facebook right now. And Instagram. So on Instagram, I'm Jamal Igle Comics, and on Blue Sky, it's jamaligle.bisky.social.app. Monkey droppings. They got to do something about that. They got to do something about that URL. They really do.
I think you can. There's some way you can change it, or
you can. I'm a late adopter when it comes to technology. I don't have time for all of that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I sound more and more like my dad every day when it comes to technology. And he's 7 and hates all of it. Oh, yes. Well, Jamal, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We do appreciate your time.
Oh, no problem. Chad, Matt, it's been a pleasure once again. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. And thank
It was
you all
great
for listening.
seeing you at New York Comic Con, and I think that was the first time we've talked since the CGS days.
Yeah.
Man. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. And we will be back next week with who, Chad?
Matthew Rosenberg.
Okay, for real this time.
Ooh, good get.
Hey.
Hey, we try our best. Well, Matthew Rosenberg next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Till that time, the world might be a crappy place, but it doesn't have to be. Get out there, do something good for your neighbor, support your local comic store, support local art, just be good to each other. Thank you, and we will see you next time.